Liverpool's summer transfer master plan is finally taking shape. Arne fires back at Wayne Rooney. Mohamed Salah's future becomes clearer, and a major agreement could change everything at Anfield. Plus, is the next Jurgen Klopp already waiting in the wings? Stay tuned for all the latest Liverpool transfer news, big reactions, and match predictions. And don't forget to hit subscribe for daily LFC updates. Liverpool's grand transfer plan is starting to reveal itself as critical summer period awaits. This week's Blood Red column looks ahead to this summer's transfer window and assesses the importance of qualifying for the Champions League. The beauty of Liverpool clinching the Premier League title in April of last season was that it allowed them to plan better for the months ahead. According to Arne himself, that the Reds had secured their pre-season ambition with a month to spare enabled him to sit down more with sporting director Richard Hughes to outline what was desired for the upcoming summer transfer window. If I look at the way we think about next season, our squad, these are things that are on my mind. Slot said at the time, I think we can find one or two extra weapons that this team doesn't as a result. Their status as champions and the riches accompanying a top spot finish in the world's most lucrative league helped the club embark on the most ambitious period of player trading in their history, where around £450 million was spent and around half of that was recouped. Jurgen Klopp used to say it was during the March international break when he was finally able to get around to speaking to fellow Anfield insiders about prospective summer targets. But the problem for Liverpool right now is the uncertainty surrounding their Champions League status. The next month might bring some clarity on what awaits the Reds, but it's undeniable that missing out will harm recruitment plans. Football careers are short, and while sporting director Hughes may be able to sell the Anfield dream to so many potential recruits later this year, a term outside of the revamped European Cup will undoubtedly count against Liverpool in negotiations. That being said, the eye-watering outlay of 2025 is starting to bear real fruit, which bodes well for a club heading into a summer where major squad surgery might once more be required. The Slot Hughes regime is improving its reputation by the week when it comes to acquisitions. 15-goal Hugo Ekitike has been the pick of the bunch. The France international is expected to finish his maiden campaign at Anfield as the club's first top scorer, not named Mohamed Salah, since Philippe Coutinho's haul of 14 years ago. Liverpool feel their number 22 has all the tools to become one of the finest multifunctional forwards in European football, and an exciting first term of the Reds has hinted at that potential at times. Florian Wirtz has steadily grasped the velocity of the English game and has generally been excellent since late November. Much more is expected of the £116 million playmaker, but it has been a good few months for the Germany international, who appears ready to embrace more responsibility for the Reds during the final few months of the term. Wirtz has been one of the most consistent performers during a run that has seen the Reds lose just twice in 19 games, and the attacking midfielder's form deservedly earned him the club's Player of the Month award for January. Milos Kerkez looks a different player to the rash fullback who appeared overawed at the start of his Liverpool journey, and Jeremy Frimpong, in between frustrating injury layoffs, has added an extra dimension to the right side of Slot's team with his searing pace and willingness to drive at the opposition. Teenage defender Giovanni Leone cannot be judged yet as he recovers from an ACL injury, and backup goalkeeper Georgi Mamardashvili will be entrusted to lead the club out of the Alisson Becker era in the coming years. Alexander Isak, of course, remains the odd one out, but the £125 million striker has 3 years of sterling service at Newcastle, 54 goals in total, as evidence to back up why he will eventually make the grade at Liverpool once he recovers from what has been a fitness-blighted and injury-plagued campaign. The wisdom of spending a mind-blowing total of £320 million on just 3 players can be debated at length, considering the club allowed as many as 7 players who made 10 or more league appearances to leave, however. But Liverpool's track record under Hughes and Slot proves they have an ambitious recruitment department determined to target the best in class. This is why Champions League qualification remains critical to the future at Anfield. Liverpool's grand plan for the summer of 2025 is starting to reveal itself, but the club can't afford to let the second part of that, this coming summer, be cut off from the Champions League bounty. Alexis Allister position addressed as Arne Slot makes X-rated Liverpool admission. Liverpool boss Arne Slot has been asked about the improvement in form from Alexis Allister in the Reds' midfield. Arne has pinpointed the reason behind Alexis Allister's recent improved form that has prompted renewed transfer talk surrounding the Liverpool midfielder. Allister was this week linked with interest from bitter Northwest rivals Manchester United, having long been courted by Spanish side Real Madrid. His father Carlos, however, subsequently issued a short statement declaring the player is only concerned at present about the possibility of a new deal at Anfield as he approaches the final 2 years of his current contract signed when arriving from Brighton for £35 million in the summer of 2023. Allister's performance levels dipped during the first half of the season as he struggled for fitness after nursing a long-term injury problem, with Slot also highlighting the difficulty in building new partnerships after the squad overhaul during the summer. I think it's always a combination of factors, but fitness is a very important one, said Slot, whose team are at Nottingham Forest on Sunday afternoon. I think the moment a player starts to play more and more games, he gets fitter and fitter. He's not the only example of that. Dominic Szoboszlai is an example of that. After 2.5 years, you cannot compare him anymore with the player of 2.5 years ago. Mainly the focus is on Hugo, Ekatike, and Florian Wirtz, and the new ones, but Dom had the same trajectory. The second thing is if you bring in a few new players and a few leave, then you need new connections in the team. So that takes a bit of time before everyone is ready, especially if you cannot constantly play with the same team for the reasons I've explained many times. They were not fit enough to play every single time, every 3 days. So that takes in a little bit of time. And if you score a set piece against Sunderland, then the last half hour feels nicer than if you concede against Nottingham Forest after half an hour. Speaking earlier this year, Allister suggested Liverpool had changed too many things during the summer transfer market, and Slot accepts the time it has taken the new signings time to adjust to the Reds' pressing game made it difficult for the Argentina international to produce his best form. One of the things that hurts you if you're not as fit as we're now is the pressing, said the Reds boss. And if you are more open in pressing, and what I mean by open is not that we conceded 15 counterattacks, which some pundits try to say, which is not true, but we weren't as effective in our pressing as we were last season, because we were not ready enough yet, and that takes a bit of time. Now we are much more ready. Even against Manchester City, you could see that we could play 45 minutes in the second half. Even in the first half, there were more signs that we were good, but people maybe didn't really notice. That has improved a lot, and if that was not on the right level yet, then midfielders and defenders are more exposed because they play through you. They can bring an extra player into the midfield. So the better we press in the first line, the less problems we have over there. But you cannot have the most ball possession in the league if everything was S***T throughout the whole season. We were at a good level. We've been very unlucky, which I've said 120 times, but we are better now. Having started 6 of the last 7 Premier League games, Allister will be hoping to retain his place in midfield, although Ryan Gravenberch is pushing for a recall after being benched for the FA Cup win over Brighton last weekend. Hugo Ekatike is also poised to return in attack, while Joe Gomez could be asked to fill in at right back, having returned from a hip injury with successive substitute appearances. Liverpool will be hoping to avenge a shock 3-0 home defeat earlier this season when they travel to Forest, where they have won only 1 league game in 42 years. But when asked if that November beating was the lowest point of the season, Slot said, "We had a few. Burnley felt really, really tough, the 1-1. City felt really hard as well, because we played so well. We deserved so much more." Which other ones did we have? The first one defeat is always difficult. Palace away. Leeds was really tough. Bournemouth was really tough, all because it was in the last second of games. Unbelievable. So sometimes being unlucky is hard. Sometimes not getting what you deserve is hard. And we've hardly lost a game of football where you can accept, okay, this one is acceptable. Maybe City away was probably the only one that wasn't nice to experience, but was what the one that was most deserved for us to lose. Mohamed Salah truth, now clear as Liverpool's summer transfer agreement reached Mohamed Salah has experienced a roller coaster few months, and the rest of the season offers plenty of intrigue at Liverpool. What a difference 2 months can make. Back in December, when Mohamed Salah waved the cop after helping Liverpool beat Brighton in the Premier League, there was a genuine fear he may never be back, with the fallout of his controversial comments the previous weekend still reverberating. But when Salah was again gesticulating to the packed Anfield stand during Brighton's FA Cup visit last weekend, it was in celebration after scoring a goal as the Reds sauntered into the fifth round, with 2 goals and 4 assists in 7 appearances. Since returning from the Africa Cup of Nations, the Egyptian is back in the groove. What, though, can be expected for the rest of the season? And is a summer departure formality? Our Echo writers take a look. Paul Gorst. On December 6th, when Mohamed Salah appeared to press the nuclear button on his Anfield career, the calm manner at which he claimed he had been thrown under the bus hinted at a premeditated outburst by the Egyptian king. Over 2 months later, with things looking a bit more rosy in Liverpool's garden, the question can now be asked as to how much of Salah's outspoken post-match chat in the bowels of Elland Road was simply an emotional reaction to being left on the bench for 3 successive games. No one quite knew, as Salah left the Anfield pitch a week later following a win over Brighton, and that would be his final appearance as a Liverpool player. Thankfully, cooler heads appear to have prevailed, and a month-long absence at the Africa Cup of Nations made the heart grow fonder for all involved. It seemed an ASA result. Salah has looked much improved of late, and it is no coincidence that a side who struggled for creativity and goals in his absence have seen a big upturn in both since his comeback. In the 7 games missed while he was in Morocco, the Reds scored just 11 goals, 4 of them against League One side Barnsley. Compare that to the 20 scored in the same amount of games since the 33-year-old returned to the fold, and the idea that he has been a force for good once more in the final third is undeniable. Interest from Saudi Arabia is likely to persist this summer, given he once more enters the final 12 months of his terms on Merseyside. It was the summer of 2023 when officials from the Saudi Pro League offered Liverpool £150 million that was flatly turned down, and given the league might be in search of a new figurehead on the pitch, they may be contacted once more. But Salah managed to eke out arguably his best-ever campaign for the club across 2024-25, when he was also inside the last year of his contract. Having adopted a whatever will be mentality for Slot's debut campaign, it afforded him the freedom to turn in a 34-goal campaign that culminated in a second Premier League's time at Anfield. Would you really bet against Salah doing something similar once more next season? His peak years might be behind him, but he still has a great deal to offer. Ian Doyle. Had you asked anybody 2 months ago whether Mohamed Salah had played his last game for Liverpool, most would have responded in the affirmative. And even among those who thought the Egyptian king would see out the remainder of the season, many were pretty much convinced Salah was heading for pastures new this coming summer. Saudi Arabia surely awaited. Now, though, matters aren't quite so clear. And that's entirely down to the 33-year-old buckling down and reminding Liverpool, and perhaps himself, that he still very much has a part to play for the Reds. A shift in expectations from the start of the season, and the much deliberated issues Liverpool have suffered on and off the field during the past 9 months undoubtedly sapped Salah's energy and enthusiasm, leading up to his infamous and wholly misguided post-Leeds outburst. He shouldn't have done it, but the winger now clearly has the hunger back in his game, the bit between his teeth. He is again embracing his defensive duties, Sunderland away a good example of this, and his sheer presence on the field is opening up previously closed avenues for his attacking teammates. Salah also appears to have adjusted to the fact he isn't the player he once was. Nobody is at his age, but that doesn't make him a busted flush. And with the Champions League, the FA Cup, and a top 4 place all to play for, there's plenty for Salah to chase over the remaining weeks of the campaign. His present form rather than past glories indicates he deserves his place in the team. Look, the smart money is perhaps still on the Saudi Pro League making an offer Liverpool, and Salah will find too good to resist this time around, particularly with only 12 months remaining on his contract. But if Salah remains at the club next season, there will be few grumbles if he maintains his current level of impact. His Anfield rehabilitation continues. Arne hits back at Wayne Rooney dig and makes clear Jurgen Klopp point Liverpool boss Arne has dismissed Wayne Rooney's claims he does not have the aura to manage at the top level, pointing to his Premier League title win last season. Arne has brushed off suggestions from Wayne Rooney that he lacks the aura required to manage Liverpool, highlighting that such criticisms weren't being voiced when he lifted the Premier League trophy last term. Slot has faced mounting scrutiny throughout the campaign following a challenging title defense for the Reds, who currently sit outside the top 4 and the automatic Champions League qualification spots. The situation led former England striker Rooney to draw unfavorable comparisons this week between the Liverpool manager and his predecessor Jurgen Klopp, claiming Slot doesn't possess the necessary presence of the role. I just don't think, for Liverpool, Slot has that aura, Rooney said on the Overlap fan debate earlier this week. Maybe that's because Liverpool have just come off the back of Jurgen Klopp as manager. It's difficult for anyone to do that, but I just don't think there's that aura about him. However, when pressed on the remarks, Slot responded, "Comparing people with each other is something everyone has a right to do, but is that fair to compare people with each other? We are all different. The only thing we have in common, Jurgen and me, is that we both won the league, and that's not too bad, is it? I think the more a manager wins, the more aura he has. That's in general something. I don't know if you agree with Wayne Rooney, by the way, but if this would be the general opinion, then I think people would probably tell you last season I had more aura than this season. But maybe he's the only one who has this opinion. I don't know, you tell me. It's the first time that I heard this. But I think it's fair to say that Jurgen definitely has aura. Yeah, I can talk about him, not about myself, but he definitely had that. But a winning manager has an aura as well." Slot, whose Liverpool side faced Nottingham Forest on Sunday afternoon, believes the relentless scrutiny from an ever-growing number of media platforms means those in his role are far less likely to enjoy extended spells comparable to Klopp and current Manchester City manager Pep Guardiola. I got this question a few months ago, and I was a bit surprised, but when I later thought about it, I think it's harder now because there's so much being said about football, so much more than 10 years ago. Slot said, "The moment you start to lose 1 or 2 games now, then there's much more being spoken about it and much more emphasis on it. So that makes it more difficult. I think the job has become harder because of all the media attention. Jurgen did so well. Pep did so well. But the biggest accomplishment is maybe to do this job for 10 years because it's hard work. I can tell you. Many people work hard. But it's also mentally hard. I ask the power more of the players now than it's ever been before. I would argue that is true. I don't think that has changed in football. The question is always, do owners or the people who decide to listen to players if they are not positive about you? And that's different in every club. Nottingham Forest versus Liverpool predictions, as Alan Shearer agrees with Paul Merson. Alan Shearer and Chris Sutton have all made their predictions for Nottingham Forest's crucial Premier League clash against Liverpool at the City Ground on Sunday. Nottingham Forest made the perfect start under new manager Vitor Pereira as they thrashed Turkish giants Fenerbahce 3-0 in Istanbul. The East Midlands club have endured a nightmarish hangover following the euphoric highs of their 2024-25 campaign, sitting in 17th place despite qualifying for European competition for the first time in 3 decades. Former Everton manager Sean Dyche was fired last week after Forest could only muster a 0-0 draw against the 20th place Wolves side that is secured just 1 league victory all season. Liverpool, too, have experienced quite the drop-off from clinching a 20th top-flight league title last season, rather than mounting a credible title defense. The Reds are looking up an Arsenal side 16 points clear of them and face a battle to retain their Champions League status as we enter the run-in. When the two sides clash at the City Ground on Sunday, both sets of supporters will be desperate for 3 points, with plenty riding on their respective campaigns. So what are the pundits saying? Paul Merson, the Arsenal legend who made 424 appearances for the Gunners and won the league twice, made his prediction in his regular column for Sportskita. This is a humongous game at both ends of the table. Vitor Pereira has taken over from Sean Dyche at Nottingham Forest, and he'll be under pressure. Forest have to start winning games. Draws won't be enough from now on. Before this clash against Liverpool, they have to travel to Fenerbahce for their Europa League game. That could take a toll on them. I think Forest have a good chance of staying up because they have decent fixtures coming up. But they must look to get a result against Liverpool this weekend to set the tone for it. Liverpool destroyed Sunderland last time out. I haven't seen any other team do that to Sunderland at the Stadium of Light this season. Ibrahima Konate and Mohamed Salah starting to look like their old selves has helped Liverpool. You don't play for Liverpool if you're not a good defender. So Konate must have the trust of everyone at the club. Otherwise, Liverpool would have gone all in for Guehi. The Liverpool lineup also looks quite settled now. A few weeks ago, we had no idea who would be in the starting 11. But now, at least 9 players are nailed on, and that has made a difference to them. I expect a comfortable win. Chris Sutton, the title-winning Blackburn Rovers striker who amassed 255 Premier League appearances, gave his assessment of the match for BBC Sport. When Vitor Pereira went in as Wolves manager in December 2024, he did brilliantly to keep them up, but has essentially taken them down this season, picking up only 2 points from 10 games before he was sacked. Now he has arrived at Forest as their 4th manager of the season. I don't think his predecessor, Sean Dyche, deserved the sack. Based on the results in his 18 games in charge, Forest would be 12th in the table. But we are used to seeing managerial changes at the City Ground now. We know Pereira will try to keep things tight, but Forest's biggest issue throughout this campaign has been scoring goals, and I am not sure they will be able to get at Liverpool. Arne Slot's side became the first team to win at the Stadium of Light when they edged out Sunderland in their last league game, and I can see a similar outcome here. Alan Shearer, Sutton's former strike partner at Blackburn, and the Premier League's all-time leading goal scorer, also weighed in with his thoughts in his predictions column for Betfair. Nottingham Forest have a change of manager, and it was a huge decision which sort of came out of the blue. But I think Liverpool look as if they've got some sort of normality back. So I'll go for an away win. I think it'll be between Nottingham Forest and West Ham for who does take that 3rd relegation place. I don't see Forest getting anything this weekend. I think they'll make it tough, but not have enough on the day. I think. As Arsenal found it tough, City found it tough there as well, and Liverpool will as well, because I think Vitor Pereira will get a great reception and the City ground will be rocking. However, I think the form that Liverpool are in, they'll just have too much. The next Jurgen Klopp is destined to replace Arne Slot at Liverpool. Arne Slot could be replaced by the next Jurgen Klopp at Liverpool. Let's be honest, even though it seems like the Reds may have turned a corner, the Dutchman's job is still on a thin line. You don't go on a run of 9 defeats in 12 games and not be under fire at Liverpool. Slot went the entire 2025 calendar year with just a 50% win record. He's done the same in 2026 so far. Liverpool's Champions League spot is still under threat. If the Reds do not qualify for the Champions League, it's difficult to envision a future with Slot as head coach of the club. Even if they do quality and the Reds do not win any trophies, it's still difficult to see Slot being given a chance to continue at the helm. Given how poor a season this was and how out of touch Slot seems, especially when it comes to breaking down rigid low blocks, it just seems like change is inevitable. Slot will not be the long-term manager at Anfield. Many people yearn for the return of Jurgen Klopp, but again, this is something that is unlikely to happen. Instead, what may be far likelier is Liverpool moving toward a promising young manager who is being regarded as the next Klopp in Germany. Meet Sebastian Hoeneß. He's a former Hertha and Hoffenheim player who had to retire at an early age due to injuries. Since then, he has been working as a coach, getting his first big break as the manager of Bayern Munich's 2 team. Hoeneß then became the manager of Hoffenheim, where he led the team to 2 mid-table finishes before parting ways. His biggest role so far has been at Stuttgart, where he has transformed the club. When he arrived at the German side in April 2023, they were in the relegation zone. Hoeneß rescued them from the drop, and over the course of the next few seasons, he had turned Stuttgart into a challenger. Last season, he led the side to a Europa League spot, where they recently battered Celtic away from home 4-1 in the knockout round. This season, Hoeneß's side have a genuine chance of qualifying for the Champions League, currently sitting in 4th place in the Bundesliga. They will also be one of the favorites in the Europa League, giving Hoeneß a chance to do something remarkable with a side he literally lifted up from the very bottom of the league. Only 43 years old, his achievement at Stuttgart is akin to what Jurgen Klopp did with Borussia Dortmund and Mainz. Hoeneß is still young, and he's playing really attractive, eye-catching football. In many ways, he seems like the perfect fit for Liverpool. And just like Klopp, it feels as though he may be destined to manage at Anfield.